Coming up, I'll consider the North Carolina murder and some other crimes to look at the making of these criminals without a conscience. Who's responsible for doing that? I'll tell you. Jonathan Cahn, whose book The Dragon's Prophecy is the basis for my new film. By the way, the website for the film, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Go watch the trailer. Go sign up for streaming, for DVDs. Movie tickets will go on sale soon, about the middle of the month. But you can sign up for DVDs and streaming now. But Jonathan Cahn's going to come on. He's going to talk about his new book. It's called The Avatar. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, X, or Rumble, listening on Apple or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
My topic for today, or for this opening segment, is called Crime and Democrats. And I use this title because I think we need to point the finger of blame squarely at the Democratic Party. This is not to say that the assailant is not responsible. The assailant or assailants did do the crimes. The mother of the black guy who stabbed the young woman whose name is Irina Zaretskaya, the young Ukrainian woman sitting in the train in North Carolina, the mother goes, my son is a really bad guy. He should not have been on the street. So who put him on the street? It wasn't really the mom. It was the courts. It was the city. It was Charlotte, North Carolina, a city, by the way, run by Democrats. They've had Democratic mayors now for I don't know how long, but it's certainly over a decade. And I'll come back to that. But this is the face of crime across America. Crime that shows its brutal and ugly face, largely, though not exclusively, in blue cities. Here we have San Jose, California. An 88-year-old man is running a jewelry store. You can watch the video. Debbie showed it to me. Very horrifying. Big smashing sound. The glass all shatters, and in runs about a dozen masked assailants. They storm inside, they smash the display cases, they throw the man to the side. He's injured, he's traumatized. They start ransacking the store, and this is just a day in the life of Democrat-run America, or the Democratic-run cities. Here's an article about pint-sized veterinary prof hacked to death by fiend while walking her dog in the park. Now, this is, in fact, in Auburn, at Auburn University. You have the veterinary professor walking with her dog, and she had a red Ford pickup truck, and the truck is recovered. Harold Rashad Dabney, 28, from Montgomery. In other words, this is a case where the event occurs on a college campus, but the assailant is coming from a democratically run city. By the way, when the crime statistics are pointed out, the left loves to say, wait a minute, crime rates are pretty high in red states as well. What they're really counting is the high crime rates in the blue areas of the red states. Does Texas have a pretty high crime rate? Yes. Where is it coming from? Houston, San Antonio, the inner city of Dallas. So it's blue America that's giving us these horrors, even if the blue America is a pocket of a red state. Now let's talk about Irina Zaretskaya. The video was not looked at carefully enough, but it has been looked at carefully by Mr. Andy No. And Andy No reports, I didn't notice until now the man accused of stabbing and killing the Ukrainian young woman said on camera, I got that white girl while walking around with blood dripping from his knife. What does this tell you? Racially motivated killing. This is obviously not his sole motive. He's a barbarian. I don't think he would hesitate under other circumstances to kill a black guy. But he probably would kill a black guy in some other transaction. If they get in a fight, it's a drug transaction. He kills this white girl really because she's white. So this is turning out to be a bit of a rousing of America, maybe white America, from its dogmatic slumber. I saw one guy say on X, and this is a little bit of a harsh thing to say, but this is what happens when you see this kind of thing that makes your blood boil. He goes, now I better understand why the South had lynching, because lynching was a response, he argues, to episodes like this. And it is true. If you watch, for example, the Kohberger trial, you could see the father of one of the young women, and this guy was like bristling. He's almost like he wanted to jump out of his seat and sort of strangle Kohberger himself. So this impulse, although we are in a society under law, you can't do that. You're in a courtroom. Yes, your daughter was murdered, but it is not exactly hard to understand why someone would do that. And if you want to know how the left is and the Democrats are so cut off from normal human feelings here, let's look at Axios. Here is Axios reporting the incident. The gruesome video of the fatal knife attack on Irina Zaritskaya on a light rail car in Charlotte is drawing attention from MAGA influencers seeking to elevate the issue of violent urban crime. So to them, it's not a story. In fact, they're explaining in a way why they and other media outlets never covered it. They don't want to cover these stories. What is the story from their point of view? The story from Axios' point of view is that MAGA is trying to make it a story. Here's a line from that article. The video is easily shared or leaked and can instantly pollinate across social media, a visual counterpoint to statistics showing crime decreases. So basically what Axios is saying is that we have data, and by the way, a lot of this data is itself massaged, it's manipulated. How is it manipulated? Well, if you're a DA, you don't prosecute certain types of violent crime, and so obviously it's not going to get counted. If you have judges, you let people out of prison, and so the prison population is proportionately decreased. So then the left goes, prison populations are down. Prosecutions are down. The number of people charged with violent crimes is down. And the assumption is that violent crime is itself down. Not true. But what Axios is saying here is we're a little disturbed that when we are out there telling everybody to relax because crime rates are down using our manipulated statistics, the right wing, the MAGA people, are circulating this emotionally charged video which can counter the kind of stuff that we're reporting. So Axios is almost saying we would rather that people could not get their information. In fact, in some ways, I'm thinking to myself, if the X platform did not exist, think about what would happen. YouTube would censor the video, Facebook would censor it, and so there wouldn't really be any there would be Truth Social, there would be Getter, there would be Telegram, but there wouldn't be the kind of platform of the size of X to get this kind of information out. Axios, another headline, Grisly Charlotte stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. That is their take. And the reason it is their take is that they know that their policies, the policies ideologically recommended by the left and the policies carried out by the Democratic Party, produce all this. Now here's Trump, and I like what he says. When you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions. And this is the prudential approach. You respond to barbarism with a certain kind of harshness. You don't do the same thing. It's not as if Trump wants to go and grab this guy who did this and cut him up with a knife. So it's not tit for tat. It's not an eye for an eye. But it is severe enforcement. It is strong presence of the National Guard. The context or background for all this is, of course, Trump's kind of crackdown on Washington, D.C., and his threat to crack down on Chicago and other cities. And again, what are the Democrats saying and what's the left saying? This is authoritarian. This is fascist. Leave these cities alone. Our crime rates are down by our own count. We don't prosecute, and so we get to pretend that we're not having high crime rates. But the crime rates that we do have, whether high or low, we like them. We want to keep them. You stay out of it. Now, this kind of killing, when you see it for yourself, you know, in many ways, to me, it's reminiscent of October 7th. When you see the video of October 7th, and I think one part of what gives our film so much power is most people have just not seen it. And so they can continue to talk about, well, I'm concerned about what's happening and people don't have food in Gaza. All right, but again, let's put everything in perspective. And I'll probably talk tomorrow at more length about this recent Israeli strike on Qatar. I think it's another escalation. It's a changing of the equation. It resembles the Israel strike on Iran. Israel is going beyond striking Hamas in Gaza. It is expanding the operation to some degree. I think they need to look at the West Bank. That's where that recent act of terror came from. It was West Bank Palestinians and not guys from Gaza who did the attack, the recent attack in Jerusalem. And but the point I'm getting at here is that when you have October 7th, Israel is going to respond harshly. When you have the wave of illegal violence in America, where you have illegal aliens perpetrating violence, there's going to be some serious support for mass deportation, for getting rid of these guys. It doesn't matter if we send them to El Salvador or Swaziland. Apparently, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is headed for Swaziland, which has now got a new name. It's Erotani or Ericatani or Ericatini, something like that. But basically, it is a very harsh place. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is like, I don't want to go back to El Salvador. I won't feel safe over there. Send me somewhere else. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to send you to Swaziland. And, you know, guess what? We better give you an extra pair of running shoes because things may not go very well for you over there. But if you're going to insist that you want to go there, then we're going to have to send you there. So the Democratic Party here has declared itself to be on the side of these criminal illegals, on the side of the bad guys, on the side of Hamas to a large degree, not exclusively, but to a large degree. Debbie showed me today a kind of a comical meme posted by Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania, and he was literally like chortling over the Israel attack. So he's an exception, but he is no longer. He is far from the mainstream of the Democratic Party. The mainstream of the Democratic Party is very much in the Palestinian. And when we say Palestinian, we actually do mean Hamas camp. Why? Because who is acting on behalf of the Palestinians if not Hamas? Is there anybody else? Can you think of any other Palestinian leadership? Has anyone stepped up to say, Hamas, step aside. We're going to represent the Palestinians. We represent a peaceful, no, all negotiations are through Hamas. Right after October 7th, who was jumping up and down in the streets? All the civilians, women, children, the very people. Oh, your women and children are being blamed in what is not their battle. Well, it kind of is their battle. They elected Hamas. They show tears of joy, Allahu Akbar, when Hamas carries out one of its operations. Now, yes, it's complicated. They've been indoctrinated. Hamas controls the schools and the children are being fed this kind of material. This is in some ways the unavoidable tragedy of war. It's also the tragedy, by the way, of crime. When a bad guy does something, his whole family is affected. His wife loses a source of support. The children lose their dad. And unfortunately, some of the fallout does land on the heads of the innocent. But one group that is not innocent, one group that's fully implicated here in America, is the Democratic Party. For too long, Christian entertainment has been trivial and second-rate, but Angel Studios is proving that that's no longer the case. They've launched 2 new original series that excel in storytelling and production. The first is A Week Away, a musical about a teen dragged to a Christian summer camp. At first, he rejects it, but through music, community, and faith, his heart begins to change. It's entertaining while delivering a clear message of redemption with music that will move you. Then there's Testament, the series. This one's extraordinary. It reimagines the book of Acts in a modern setting, showing believers risk everything to follow Christ. It raises a profound question. How far would you go, would we go, to stand boldly for the truth today? Here's the key. Both shows were chosen by the Angel Guild, ordinary families who want better stories on their screens. As a premium member, you'll enjoy ad-free access, 2 free tickets to theatrical releases, and a real voice in what gets made next. Go to angel.com/Dinesh and join the Angel Guild today. Angel.com/Dinesh. Microplastics, tiny pieces of plastic are everywhere. It's in our food, water, even our air. A new study shows 94% of our drinking water contains microplastics, and they're in 88% of our meat and seafood. Even if you eat clean, you're still taking in plastic, and it's damaging your health from the inside out. These particles pass through the gut barrier, they enter your bloodstream and trigger a wave of oxidative stress, leading to inflammation, mutations, and even cancer. BPA plastics disrupt hormones, damage DNA, and are now showing up in the human brain. Wow. But there's hope, and it starts in the gut. Kimchi One from Bright Core Nutrition is packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi and proven to break down BPA. Right now, my viewers and listeners can get 25% off Kimchi One with code Dinesh by going to mybrightcore.com/Dinesh. But here's an even better deal. You should call, because if you call, you can get up to 50% off and free shipping. So here you go. The number is 888-927-5980. The number again, 888-927-5980. Guys, I am delighted to bring on the podcast again none other than Jonathan Cahn. Now, you know Jonathan Cahn. He is, in fact, my partner and collaborator in this new film, The Dragon's Prophecy. And we're going to say a word about that, but he's on today to talk about his new book. The book is called The Avatar, The Return of the Ancients and the Future of America. I'm really excited. Debbie and I are going to Israel soon. I'm going to be taking The Avatar with me to read. I find Jonathan's books just riveting. He started out the gate with The Harbinger, and then came just a procession of books. The Paradigm, The Oracle, of course, The Dragon's Prophecy, now the Avatar. The website is booksbyjonathancahn.com, and that lists all the different places you can buy the book. But hey, if you want to get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, that's also a good way to get the Avatar. Jonathan, welcome. I know you've been on the book tour, and you must be it must be crazy, but thank you for joining me. And by the way, I got to say how excited I am to collaborate with you on The Dragon's Prophecy. It's been a very meaningful project for us, for Debbie and me. And you supplied a kind of missing ingredient. As you probably know, I started out, I wanted to do something on Israel, I wanted to do something on biblical archaeology, but I didn't quite know how to tie the present, the past, and the future all in one bundle, in one knot. And The Dragon's Prophecy was just a kind of, and you were on this podcast, and Debbie and I were listening, and we were like, wait a minute, this guy's talking about a lot of the stuff that we want to feature. And so it's turned out to be a beautiful partnership, also a pleasure working with you on it. So that's exciting. Say a word, if you will, about that project, and then I want to ask you about the Avatar.
It happened a year ago. After we did this, I got an email from you a few days. I said, "What, Dinesh D'Souza?" And I was excited. First of all, it was a joy to work with you. I mean, people know you, Dinesh, as someone who's on the edge with all with all these things, and you are just such a sweet person and humble. And it was a joy to work with you to do this, and it's been a joy to watch what you put together, which I think is fantastic. And I'm excited that it's going to the theaters, and I know it's going to go streaming in October. So it's exciting. It's important. I mean, so important now with what's happening, not only with Israel, but also what's happening with anti-Semitism and anti-Israel suddenly, around in our culture. So I think it's an important film, and I'm very blessed, blessed to have that you did this.
Yeah, when you do these films, you don't know if this will be the topic on people's minds when the film comes out, because you cook it up, as you said, about a year ago.
Yeah.
It was tricky for us to be able to go to Israel, and and of course, what makes me really happy about the film and your appreciation of it is that a film is very different than a book. A film tells a story in a narrative, as a journey. It's a lot different than making an argument. But you are very understanding of what a film is and how it works. And I think we've got a really good one out for people to see, coming out right around October 7th. By the way, guys,
it's exciting, everybody. I encourage you. I mean, we'll encourage you, but it's just blanketing October 7th from October 6th and October 8th in all the theaters, and it's going to be streamed. But I think it's real important, and also that bring people in your life, because people need to see this. This is an important message to come out of it. Not only are there going to be mysteries, but you have an important message for this hour.
Absolutely. Let's pivot, Jonathan, to the new book, the Avatar. You do have a gift for titles. You have The Harbinger, Return of the Gods. I mean, talk about a great title, The Dragon's Prophecy, now The Avatar. So let me start by asking, what is this book about? What is the Avatar going to reveal?
Yeah, well, the Avatar, it has to be one of the most explosive books I've ever written concerning particularly America. But it's really pulling the veil behind what's been happening in every realm. I mean, the cultural realm, the political realm. That behind this, and it goes with things that we talked about with the Dragon's Prophecy. Behind the worldly events, the Bible says there's a spiritual realm. There's another realm, and this is really taking the veil away from everything from the assassination attempt on Donald Trump to why the elections are turning out the way they are, what's happening in our culture, people in our culture who are on the scene. So I did The Return of the Gods, and in some ways this kind of intersects with that, because it's kind of going to a whole nother level. And I think what it does reveal is kind of stunning. I think some people are going to find it unbelievable, but it's a whole nother realm, and it touches on everything. I mean, we'll see. You'll get a little taste of it.
All right, let's take a few of the kind of points that the kind of high points in the book where you use a particular episode and incident. I want to ask you about the assassination the attempted assassination of Trump, but I want to start with the Olympics, because you say that the Olympics has a larger meaning that people are not really quite aware of.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Olympics, and it's not about the people, but the Olympics is of pagan origin. It was a celebration to Zeus. But the thing is that in view of what the overall picture is, that when a culture turns away from God, that has known God, has been filled by God, it's emptying itself and opening itself up to what was once cast out of it. In the case of Western civilization, these gods or spirits, as the Bible says, were cast out. Well, in the Olympics, it opened up this year this past Olympics with an opening ceremony that had to be the most widespread or aired blasphemy. It was the Last Supper, and except instead of Jesus and the apostles, it was men dressed as women and gyrating. And instead of the elements of Jesus or the bread and the wine representing his presence, his body, they had a platter. They took it up, and instead of there's a pagan god, a man dressed up as Dionysus, which ancient pagan god. Now, Jesus and the gospel drove out Dionysus, drove out the gods, and now it was replacing Jesus specifically at the Last Supper with a pagan god. It's kind of a revelation of what we are doing, what's happening in our culture, that these things come in when God goes out. But also there was a man who did this exchange years ago and says what happens. His name, it was Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, German philosopher, he's the one who said God is dead, of course. And he wrote books saying, get rid of Jesus, get rid of Christianity. And he actually adored Dionysus. He was like a follower. And Dionysus, those who followed him, were given to going crazy, insane. Nietzsche goes insane. And at the end, he starts writing, instead of signing his name Nietzsche, he signs his name Dionysus, as if he was taken over. And he actually spoke about being taken over. And the thing is that, of course, years later, a man picks up his book, which was Adolf Hitler. and the Third Reich. And so it sees, and what did they do? They drove God out. They drove out Christianity and actually welcomed in paganism. And this is the danger of what happens when you do that. And this is the danger that our culture is in right now.
Jonathan, you write about a kind of biblical template of ancient kings and queens that underlie American leaders today. What is that connection?
Yeah, when Israel turned away from God, there were leaders leading this, and it was a whole age of apostasy. Well, the Bible's amazing, and God is amazing that actually this template of Israel's falling lays behind modern American leaders in America's apostasy. I mean, I could just give a quick taste. It's mind-boggling. Behind most of the major leaders of the last maybe quarter century of America, there is a template in the Bible. And the amazing thing is this template of a king or a queen as a prototype actually not only determines or reveals what this person is doing. It's not a prophecy. It's simply God uses templates. But what they do, when they do it, how long each will have on the national stage. For instance, quick example, and that is that this template actually foreshadowed not only 9/11, but the exact date 9/11 would happen, the exact hour it would happen. This is everything from Bill Clinton to Barack Obama to Hillary Clinton to ultimately Donald Trump. But it's amazing. So this is ultimately going to lead to Donald Trump. But I will just say that what in the template, the house of Ahab was going to basically take over the culture of Israel. If they kept going, it would have sealed the culture. God had a surprise. And with America, we were also at a point of a takeover that this anti-God ideology was taking over virtually every institution of government. And God had a surprise in Donald Trump. But even Joe Biden is in this. I can give you a little taste of it.
I mean, this is remarkable, Jonathan. I want to recapitulate what you just said, because I think what you're saying, to some people it may seem like, wow, this guy is really out there. He's claiming that there is some kind of a biblical replay that is going on that involves, Carter and Reagan and Clinton. And I think what you're saying is that in the Bible, you use the word template, which I take to mean a pattern, yes. a kind of a forward and backward thrust in which you have bad guys, Jezebel, Ahab, and then you have redemptive figures, Hezekiah, Josiah. You've got guys who are trying to fix things, and then the bad guys sometimes come back and take over again. And all you're saying is that this story of good guys and bad guys and the kind of patterns that you can excavate really from the Bible right in the time following David and Solomon, you're saying we can kind of see the same pattern in modern America.
Yes, and in remarkable ways. I mean, a quick example, I'll mention Biden, I'll mention Trump. The prototype king that I'm thinking of Biden is a man named Jehoram. He's in the template. And Jehoram was a man who knew about the ways of God, but turned against and became apostate. And, actually, Biden was actually against Roe versus Wade. At the end, he was totally persecuting pro-life people. But during the reign of Jehoram, a big problem in the nation was border crossings, unchecked border crossings. Another thing that happens in the reign of Jehoram, think of Biden, was Israel is invaded. Speaking about the dragon's prophecy, Israel is invaded during his reign, and it's by the Philistines, and it begins in the Gaza Strip. It involves the nation of, they take Israelis hostages back to Gaza in the reign of Jehoram. So many things, but in Jehoram, toward the end of his reign, the big issue was he was physically impaired. Think of Biden. At the end of his reign, he has one son left, which is his youngest son, Ahaziah, who doesn't follow the Lord. Biden has Hunter, his youngest son, left. Ahaziah, listen to this, in the Hebrew, it comes from the ahaz, the Hebrew word for to seize. Well, the word to seize becomes, in German, becomes Henten, thus the name Hunter, comes from the same root. I mean, it's crazy and wild, but it's real. But let me I'm just kind of moving quick, Dinesh, if it's okay. I don't want to get in Donald Trump. What happens is that as the nation is kind of almost going to just give itself over to the house of Ahab and the gods, God raises up this warrior guy, Jehu. Jehu is a prototype of Donald Trump. Not that Donald Trump is knowing it, but the thing is that he was not a politician. He's a warrior. He was wild. He was impulsive. You never knew what he was going to do or say next. He actually, Dinesh, remember how Trump began his time by coming down that staircase, and then he begins his race? Jehu literally is on the top of a staircase, comes down, begins a race to the throne. Jehu makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of the land, Donald Trump. His whole agenda is to drain the swamp, Donald Trump. In order to come to power, Jehu had to come against the nation's former first lady, who was Jezebel. Now, Hillary Clinton was on the national stage with her husband, the political stage, for 22 years to the end of his reign, and then on her own in office and running for president 14 years. Well, Jezebel was on the national stage where they have for 22 years on her own 14 years. And so there's it's mind-boggling. And the thing is, what Jehu did, if you want to understand Trump, Jehu, his agenda was he purges the government of the house of Ahab. He rolls back that agenda. He dismantles houses of evil. I mean, it's like Trump is like a Jehu on steroids. And even how long Trump would have on the national political stage is in this template as well. So it's really mind-boggling. And it's really gives reason, as you said, with clarity to the issues. What is good? What is bad? Where are we?
Well, Debbie and I think, have been using the Jezebel epithet against Hillary Clinton for several years, and now you have given it an intellectual foundation. This is not just name-calling. This is actually grounded, you say, in a biblical precedent. Hey, talk about Butler, Pennsylvania. Talk about the assassination attempt.
Okay, and if we have time, I'll do something about an avatar who's on the stage right now. Well, the thing is that in ancient times, when God would anoint or mark someone or consecrate them to serve his purposes, there was a way that it happened. It happened through the priesthood of Israel. And the thing is that, of course, what happened with Trump, there was a miracle. I mean, just absolute hand of God. But in order for the priest, the candidate for the office of priesthood to serve God, they involved blood. Blood had to touch the ear of the priest. The blood touches the ear of Trump. How to touch the right ear? Touches his right ear. How to touch the tip of the right ear? Touches the tip of the right ear. Then the blood had to touch the hand of the man who's going to be used for God. And so Trump, first thing he does, he brings up his hand, touches the blood. It has to touch the right hand. It's the right hand. It has to be the right thumb. It touches the right thumb. For the consecration to happen, the shoes of the man who's going to be used have to be removed. And so literally when Trump is forced down where the blood, his shoes are removed. The whole consecration takes 7 days from the blood touching the ear to the time that the man is invested with the garments to ultimately serve in the office of priesthood. Well, if you count 7 days from the butler, 7 Hebrew days, the first day is Saturday. Sundown begins the next sundown, second day, count the sundowns. The seventh day begins Thursday night. Thursday night, anything happen? Trump is standing before the world and he receives the nomination to ultimately become president of the United States. I mean, there's so much to this, but it's exact.
I mean, it's also, I think, very interesting. When I did an interview with Trump for my last film, he was reflecting on all this, and he said, you know how Trump is. He's not going to speak a religious language. He starts by talking about like casinos and the odds and how his head had to be in the geometrically right place. But really what he's saying is what you just said. He was just saying that even looking at this from a secular point of view, this was so improbable as to defy the idea that, it's a great understatement to say Trump was, quote, lucky. Because what we mean by lucky is I got 4 heads in a row, or I picked the right number from 1 to 100. We're talking about odds that are 1 in a million or right?
Yeah, and listen, it's interesting because when he talks about that, he says, God saved my life. He'll go as far as saying, God saved my life for a purpose to save America. As if that was literally like an anointing, or that was the thing with that. I want, if it's okay, Dinesh, just tell you, at least do one thing, because I just feel this with you. That is that in the avatar, I speak about, what is an avatar? An avatar is someone who represented a god, actually in Hinduism, who was an embodiment of that, or a living image. And in ancient times, you didn't just have the gods, the kings were considered avatars. The pharaoh, avatar of the Egyptian god, king of Babylon. So could it be, if I talk about, when you drive out God and spirits or gods, the false gods come in, could we be at a point now with America where you actually have a person or people who could actually be almost put in power, because if a spirit can rule a king, you can rule a kingdom. So could we have been at that point and didn't even realize it? Here's the thing. I'll just do a quick nutshell. There, in the house in Hinduism, they consider one house particularly conducive to people born as avatars. That's the house of Brahman, which is the priestly, of course, the priestly of the priests of the gods. Well, there was born to the house of Brahman a person in that house, which was Kamala Harris, born of the house of Brahman, house of avatars. She's actually, her maiden name, her Hindu name is Gopalan, family name, which is named after an Hindu avatar. The avatar has to be linked to a god. She's given the name Kamala. Kamala is the name of an ancient Hindu goddess. Her middle name, Devi, means the goddess. It means Kamala, the goddess. The amazing thing, Dinesh, is that her life conforms to this pattern of the goddess, of a pagan goddess. I won't go into the detail except to say a few things. One is that this goddess was the number 2 ruler of the pantheon, and as she was the vice president. The number 1 was Vishnu, and you know how Joe Biden was called Sleepy Joe? Well, Vishnu's called the sleeping god. Actually, her middle name, Devi, is used in Hindu writings to talk about the laughing goddess, Kamala, the laughing Kamala. But here's the thing. There's a day on the calendar that is given to this goddess. It's called Sharad Purnima, where they celebrate the goddess. Well, that day, when in India they're celebrating the goddess Kamala, that's the day Kamala was born into the world, on the day of that, as they're celebrating. And they actually celebrate the goddess Kamala entering the world as this is happening. It's actually also called the day of her birth, of the birth of the goddess. While they're celebrating that in India, she is born, and her whole life. I mean, it's amazing. So you had an election with someone. What's the meaning? You have someone named the goddess, and the thing is that we are one nation under God. But were we at the point like we had Trump and we had the goddess? And the thing is and were we at the point where we could have been one nation under one called the goddess? And there's a whole mystery to this. And by the way, there's a mystery to the day Donald Trump was born that answers this. It's amazing, but it's real. And we are in a real battle, and we're at a real moment. We've got a window. Right now we have a window of time that through what has happened with Donald Trump. But Donald Trump isn't the answer. It's God. It's revival. And we got to go full blast with everything we do for the Lord and pray for revival, because that's the only thing that can save America. I'm giving you a real nutshell, Dinesh, but I just wanted to get that in.
Well, let me just say, Jonathan, I mean, it's always for me very fascinating to listen to you, because I'm saying to myself, there is nobody else in the world that I know who I could have this conversation with. The way that you look at current events and drill down to their kind of biblical meaning and significance, you do it with a brilliance and a rigor that is totally unmatched. I'm sure that what you've given us is just a kind of an appetizer of the Avatar. So I urge people to check out the book. It's The Avatar, The Return of the Ancients and the Future of America. Get it from Amazon. Get it anywhere.
Like this.
It looks like that.
Don't get the movie. It's this.
Yeah, get the book. It's booksbyjonathancahn.com. That's the website. And of course, go to thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Yeah.
Check out the trailer. You can buy tickets early for streaming and DVDs. I've been talking to the one and only Jonathan Cahn. Jonathan, thanks for joining me. And I look forward to doing more stuff with you on the upcoming film.
Amen. Thank you, Dinesh.
Mike Lindell tells me a major retail chain canceled a massive order, leaving MyPillow with an overstock of classic MyPillows. But hey, their loss is your gain. For a limited time, MyPillow is offering the entire classic collection at true wholesale prices. I've never seen them really this low. Get a standard MyPillow for just $17.98. Upgrade to queen size for just $22.98. King size, just $24.98. Snag body pillows for $29.98. And versatile multi-use pillows for just $9.98. Plus, when you order over $75, you get $100 in free digital gifts. No strings attached. That's right. premium pillows at unbeatable prices, and bonus gifts to top it off. So don't wait. Call 800-876-0227. That's 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Don't forget the promo code DINESH Dinesh and grab your standard MyPillow for just $17.98 while supplies last.
Is the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians the revival of an ancient conflict recorded in the Bible?
The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. What if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy people of Israel?
Dinesh D'Souza went into a war zone to make his new film. It offers a new way to understand October 7th, Israel, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, and biblical prophecy. Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be tied to this place?
We came back to a land that was largely barren and empty, and we brought it back to life, and we're going to keep it.
The Dragon's Prophecy isn't just about the Middle East. It's about you.
Because without that Jewish foundation, there is no Christianity.
Based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller, in theaters October 6th and 8th. Streaming and DVDs available October 9th. Get the film at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. This film contains graphic violence of October 7th.
I've been introducing the topic of life after death, my book, Life After Death, The Evidence. And I'm addressing this issue about people who say that, hey, who really cares? It doesn't matter. What difference can it possibly make? Maybe there's life after death, maybe not. Either way, I'm going to live this life. I know I have this life, so let me start there. And I'm arguing that this mentality is inadequate. Why? Because it resembles, in some ways, the man in the burning building. So if we're in a burning building, which is to say that the building is going to burn down, the fire is going to consume us, and there may be no way to save ourselves. But there may be a way, right? Maybe there's an open window. Maybe we can jump out. And if we jump out of the window, the question is there a fireman's net below? Now, I'm not saying that there is, and I'm not saying at this point that there isn't. But what I am saying is it's really odd if someone were to say, I really don't care one way or another. I'm indifferent to whether there's a fireman's net. And I'm saying that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it's not just being obtuse or being foolish. There is a reason for this avoidance. It's denial, right? It's somehow the idea of jumping out of the window is a little traumatic, especially if you don't know whether there's a net down below or not. And so you kind of pretend that the fire will never reach you, or it will reach you at such a distant point that you can kind of go about your business. I'm going to keep eating my dinner. Maybe the fire won't get here, and maybe it will get here, but it'll be a long time from now. I think death is like that. It's approaching. We kind of know that, but we act like it's never going to come. And so I want to say that even though this seems like a very commonsensical, realistic, practical approach, it is in fact the least practical. And yet, if you feel this way, if many of us feel this way, we're not alone. This is in fact a common attitude, but it's not a common attitude in the world. It is a common attitude in the West. In the West, we live each day kind of as if we're not going to die tomorrow. But then one day we're struck with dismaying force at the idea, I'm going to die tomorrow. And this unnerving prospect of what is coming causes us to suspend that thought and continue to live life with the motto, let us pretend. Even some religious believers, by the way, are like this. There's a kind of an amusing story of an English vicar. Now you have to emphasize that this guy is an Anglican, and I mention that because there has to be something a little shoddy about that, right? You've got a sort of a denomination based upon a king who wants to marry a second time, and the whole denomination is based upon his intentions. He doesn't get a papal dispensation, and so he's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead anyway. I got a new church. It's called the Anglican Church. Sign up. So these are the Anglicans. Well, this English vicar was asked, hey, listen, do you expect to go to heaven, and what do you expect you'll find there? And he goes, well, I suppose I believe in eternal bliss if it comes to all that. He goes, but please don't bring up such depressing topics. This is the attitude of the lukewarm believer who actually is not that different from somebody who is an agnostic or even an unbeliever. Cultural institutions operate in full denial of death. In his study called The Hour of Our Death, pretty good title for a book, the historian Philip Aries, he says death used to be considered kind of a part of life. Even young people were totally familiar with it. People typically died at home. A common sight was people in a funeral procession. You'd have the body was on display. People are wailing and yelling. And by the way, you still see this. I see this when I go to India. I saw it growing up. But, says Aries, the West has developed an elaborate procedure for what he calls hushing up death. Now, in Europe and America, this is also true, by the way, of Canada and Australia, people generally don't die at home anymore. They don't die in view of their family. They die in a hospital, cut off from the world. Even family members, they just visit. They don't experience death up close. And notice what they say to you when someone dies. They don't say, he died. They say, he passed away. He's passed. He's gone. So this is the euphemistic vocabulary around death. Notice something else that I think is quite odd. When you hear the news about even a very close family member, a child, a spouse, a parent who's died, you are allowed to grieve, but guess what? Your grief has to be private. If you burst into tears and start wailing and yelling, people look at you like, what's wrong with that guy? So no screaming is allowed, no hysterics, even at the death of a wife or a child. And Aries calls this the indecency of mourning. People in the West go to funerals, but they generally don't like to go. Now, there are some exceptions. Debbie's mom was a big exception, by the way. She loved to go to funerals. And once Debbie asked her, she goes, Mom, why do you like to go to funerals? And her mom goes, well, I want to make sure a lot of people come to mine. So this was, but this is not a typical attitude. The typical attitude of people is that okay, I have to go. I go out of a sense of obligation, but we don't want to be put through it, and we can't wait to get out of there. And back to our normal life. I noticed that in normal conversation, people are a little uncomfortable if you bring up people who are dead. It's almost like those people have played their part. They have exited the stage. They're expected to move on. We're expected to move on. And so you may say that in the West, people don't really die. They just disappear. And they're never heard from again. I've gone to so many, heard so many memorials of him. We will never forget this guy. 5 minutes later, he's completely forgotten. His name will never come up again. He's never brought up. So all these passionate professions of we will never forget, totally bogus. Maybe well meant, but it's not happening, is my point. And in fact, I think back to, when I was a young man and I was writing, I was in an older environment. Most of the places I worked, from the White House to AEI, I was in my 20s and 30s, and most of the people there were in their 60s and 70s. Well, guess where they are now? Well, they're dead. And no one brings them up. If I see, just recently, Debbie and I were in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I happened to run into a guy I knew very well from AEI. I hadn't seen him in many years, and we were kind of catching up. I was really happy to see him. But I noticed that we had several colleagues in common, but a number of them, of course, have passed away. None of them were brought up. The only names that came up are people who are actually still around, still doing something. I suppose in some ways that's understandable, but nevertheless, I think I'm onto something here when I say that life after death is kind of the elephant in the living room. And there's not a lot of attention paid to the question of, open-mindedly, is there life after death? Now, interestingly, for most of history, this question of whether there's life after death or not was not considered like an open question. We got to find out. Because the truth of it is, most people, for most of history, have considered this question to have a clear and obvious answer. across the cultures of the world, East and West, North and South, right through the long march of history, most people have affirmed that this life is kind of one chapter in a larger story of existence, and that there is life after death. This is the common belief, not just of Christianity and Judaism and Islam and all the offshoots of that, but it's the common belief of Hinduism, of Buddhism, of Jainism, of Sikhism, of all the other mainstream religions in the world. Affirm life after death in some form or another. We'll get to what forms they affirm life after death in, but the truth of it is whether there's life after death is not a matter of controversy. Now, we think of this attitude as religious, and it's something that some people say, well, that's been fostered by the clergy. And yeah, it's true. But it's also true that many of the world's great philosophers and scientists have also come to that conclusion, not necessarily deriving from a religious background. Socrates is an example I mentioned a little earlier. Socrates believed in life after death, but not out of any religious conviction. His reasoning to get there is purely philosophical. Galileo, Cicero, John Locke, Isaac Newton, that's a small partial list of people who believe in the afterlife. Now, even skeptical Enlightenment figures, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, professed similar views. Now, today, Europe is the only continent where a bare majority of people believe in the afterlife. So a significant minority, close to 50%, says no, there's no afterlife. So this is secularism, you may say, through and through. But in America, the number of people who believe in life after death, closer to 80%. Might have gone down a little bit. This number is from a few years ago. But in the rest of the world, the percentage is even higher. In some places, it's close to 100% in some non-Western cultures. Now, some people may think, wow, that's really strange. Nobody's ever gone to the other side and met a dead guy. How can such a large number of people all over the world somehow all believe in something that we can't prove, that we can't see, that we can't touch? How can people who have never seen anyone come back from the dead uphold the idea of survival beyond the grave? Where did they get this notion? Now, that is a profound question. If something is apparent to you, like a rock or a tree or a stone, we know where you get the perception from. It comes from the rock. It comes from the fence you tripped over. It comes from the tree. You can smell it. You can touch it. Where does the idea of the afterlife come from? Same question, by the way, could be posed about God. Where does the idea of God come from when it is not immediately apparent to our senses? This question is something we have to answer. But let me just say for now, and I'll pick it up again tomorrow, that our attitude in the West, or many people's attitude of bemused incomprehension, like, I don't know why anyone is even interested in any of this. This is an attitude that our forefathers, our forebears, and also people in other cultures would not understand. So by having this kind of condescending attitude, what happens is we cut ourselves off, not only from people in other societies, but also for people who came before us, who would not find this a silly question at all. This is a core belief that has been held across many societies, including our own, for a very long period of time. And that alone requires some examination and some investigation.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.